The snow was heavy and drifting. Somewhere within the blizzard there was movement. Something slow and steady, but visibility was limited. Even the dragon could not make out what was happening. Some pockets of clear air floated mysteriously, like bubbles in a frozen dream. There were green trees in the bubbles, and two figures moving through them. Was this a vision? Or a gateway to another place? Occasionally, one of the bubbles popped and disappeared. Edward rode forward towards one of the bubbles, and he had a closer look at the figures. They were young. A boy and girl, hand in hand. They kissed, but then the girl pointed, and they crushed themselves against a tree. There was an army crossing the forest. Lightning struck nearby, and Edward recognized the flag the army was carrying. It was his own flag. That bubble popped also, spraying sparkling dust which melted into the snow. Edward wiped flakes from his hair and approached another bubble. The boy in the bubble turned his head, and Edward was surprised to see that it was Kit. The girl was Acacia. The army faded into nothingness, and Acacia was signaling something. Edward wished there was sound, so that he could at least know what Kit was saying. They seemed to be debating. Maybe Kit was suggesting that they tell Edward. If so, why hadn't they? That bubble also popped. The next bubble contained an overcast sky. As Edward watched, he saw himself riding into battle with his knights. His uncle came out of a wagon to confront him, but then they were all caught up in a wild storm, which whisked Edward and his company into confusion. Another bubble showed an old man with a knobbled stick, watching the castle from a distance. Edward blinked, and the bubble burst. He was aware of swords being drawn. Then, he was looking into the eyes of the old man. The bubbles of life, recent and far. This world or the next. The old man gazed at the swords. You can put those away. As you can see, I am unarmed. If you don't count my humble stick. Edward signaled for the knights to remain alert. Who are you, old man? This is a strange place, for anyone to be idly wandering. The old man smiled. Strange? Yes, I suppose, from some angles, but also a strange place for a king and his knights. Edward was studying the old man, his cloak, his hood, his boots. The purple ring on one bony finger. As you know, I am a king. Who else has the right to roam, wherever he pleases, without having to give a reason? Maybe I, too, am a king, said the old man. If you are, said Edward. You are not of this realm. I rule here. Who are you? The old man straightened him slightly. I am Maxon. And where are you bound? Asked Edward. Maxon smiled again. Aren't you more interested in finding out about these bubbles? Why they show clips of life, connected to you. In fact, they do the same for anyone who peers into them, even the most humble beggar. Edward was curious. But mostly, about why Maxon had been in his own bubble. I saw you, watching the castle. Yes, admitted Maxon. I do that quite a lot. In both worlds. He casually shook snow from his cloak. But I've never been inside the walls. Strange that, isn't it? Pity it won't stand long enough for me to do that, but it has to go. It's the last obstacle, you see, apart from you. Edward drew his sword. He was remembering old stories from his early childhood. Maxon, the greatest rival. A few years ago, during another winter, he had looked out and been drawn to the sight of a small campfire at the other side of the river. It was such a minor thing that he'd forgotten about it until now. That was your campfire. About 500 years ago. Time passes differently in this place, Maxon reminded him. But, yes, that was I, watching the start of your demise. So, you started all this? No. Maxon adjusted his stick. But I could sense that something was about to happen. And then, it started happening. A fellow wizard was tricked by his master. Oh, what a bold spell. It's forbidden, you know. I knew it would lead to something spectacular. Greed and jealousy are wonderful things, in the wrong hands. You. Maxon prodded a finger towards Edward. Beautiful. Intelligent. Articulate. Fair and wise. And so popular with all the people. You could have been the greatest king in the history of England. Tom held his sword against Maxon's head. It will give me great pleasure to end your life right now. Wizard. Maxon calmly pushed the sword aside. I don't doubt it. But you won't. It was not I who betrayed your king. But it was wonderful to watch. Such evil unleashed. Of course, I knew then that the usurper would die. He smiled at Tom, a very neat piece of counter-treachery. Well done. That's enough, said Edward. You didn't just happen to be here. What is your purpose? To delay us? Maxon laughed suddenly. Delay? Ha. No. I plan to kill you. I just wanted to meet you first. I'm quite a fan.